In the wide world of entertainment and media, corporations are always chasing after the next big thing. That new popular trend that takes the world by storm and rakes in the cash. Of course, when one company does happen to strike gold with that new hot property, everybody else wants to get in on the action themselves. There are tons of examples throughout history of one product becoming mega successful and then suddenly a myriad of clones and copycats pop up trying desperately to emulate that success. One such example came in the late 90s, when the Pokemon craze was at fever pitch. The rapid rise to fame of the Nintendo-owned series that involved catching cute and powerful little creatures inside of tiny little capsules and forcing them to fight each other. Wow, that really sounds messed up now that I think about it. It was such a phenomenon that many other companies took the opportunity to try and capitalize on this burgeoning new movement, and brought out various other products of a similar nature, hoping to achieve the same results. While many of these trend chasers had their own shares of failure and success, the one that many believed came the closest to reaching the same heights as Pokemon was the conspicuously similarly named franchise, Digimon. Short for digital monsters, Digimon originally began as a series of virtual pets, a male counterpart to the female-orientated Tamagotchi. However, all too quickly, the series began to shift and expand, with novels, TV shows, and games telling stories about a bunch of young kids traveling to a digital world filled with wild and bizarre monsters, and equipped with their own digivices that allowed them to turn their own Digimon into stronger creatures. They must survive this harsh new land and stop a malevolent evil from bringing chaos to both of their worlds. When 20th Century Fox licensed out the anime series for Western audiences under their Fox Kids brand, it became an instant hit. And while it did have a lot in common with the Pokemon franchise, there were just enough differences between them to make it stand out as a viable alternative. For one, all of the creatures' names ended in Mon, and they could talk instead of just grunt or speak their names continuously. Their more outlandish designs were a far cry from the more kid-friendly appearances of their counterparts, and the stories that they would tell were often much darker than the tales of a 10-year-old boy whose main motivation in life is gotta catch 'em all. Upset that you can't win a tiny little badge in a gym battle? Try watching your best friend completely disintegrate in front of you after they sacrificed themselves to save your life. Digimon was like Metallica compared to Pokemon's S-Club 7. Of course, since Pokemon had a great deal of success with their rather arrogantly named first movie, naturally Fox were more than eager to jump on the bandwagon and get some of that Hollywood money, with their franchise's own feature-length picture, Digimon the Movie. There was just one problem. There was no Digimon movie.
Come again?
See, unlike Pokemon, which has managed to produce at least one theatrically released film every year for the last 2 decades, which makes that first movie moniker sound less like arrogant boasting and more like a warning, Digimon was more in the market for creating OVAs, or original video animations, basically short films or miniseries that were released on home video instead of being shown on TV or in theatres. Because they don't often exceed a runtime of 20 to 40 minutes, there's no real justification for any one of these OVAs to be released in cinema. But the heads of Fox Kids, presumably high on money and some other substances, decided to make their own Digimon movie by splicing together the first 3 OVAs to create this bizarre Frankenstein-esque monster of a film. This is going to be quite a task trying to cover this movie, so I think we should just grab the bullmon by the horns and get this thing started. Oh jeez, I completely forgot about this. So I guess because the Pokemon movies started with these short films starring perennial favourite Pikachu, the Digimon movie had to as well. But instead of doing something like, I don't know, Gomamon's Vacation or something, apparently Fox Kids wanted to take this opportunity to promote some of the other shows that they owned, and as such we get a 4-minute episode of Angela Anaconda, this TV show about a young girl named Angela and the misfit adventures that she gets up to with her friends. I barely remember watching this show when I was a kid, and for good reason. It's not really that good. I mean, the cutout animation style is impressive for the time, and there are some creative elements to it, but Angela is just not a great main character, with an insufferably nasally voice, and too whiny and petty to be likable. The short has Angela and her friends going to see the Digimon movie when they get stuck behind this posh girl Nanette and their teacher Miss Brinks, so Angela can't even see the big screen. Her big revenge has her daydream that she and her friends become Digimon and fight Nanette, who is piloting a robot version of their teacher. Then it turns out that they were in the wrong screen and they all rush out of the theatre. My favourite part is when Angela just pops up on the big screen at the end, because that's exactly what this short is doing, getting in the way of what we actually came to see. Interestingly enough though, a rumour started spreading about a few years ago that one kid saw the film in the cinema and was so confused about why he was seeing this Angela short instead of Digimon that he started crying. His parents, who were already in a rocky relationship, took him out of the theatre and started arguing with each other. This was apparently the last straw for them and they later divorced. Now, I question the validity of this story because it originated as a random post on 4chan of all places. Plus it sounds like that relationship was so unstable that anything was bound to set them off. But that is one hell of an accolade to carry. Angela Anaconda, and by association Digimon the movie, caused a divorce. Anyway, I'm sure Angela does have her fans somewhere, but the show and this short just doesn't do it for me. Now we can start the film off properly. And what better way to start off a 2000s anime film than with that old favourite of anime openers, a rap number.
The Digivolution is up and running. Did you see? Did you hear? Did you know what's coming? A Digi-Destiny starts today. Let me hear you say.
I used to find this so cool when I was a kid. And if I'm honest, there's still a part of me that really enjoys it. But yeah, this is so poorly dated and awful. The original Digimon theme is a classic kid's favourite that's still so good to listen to even to this day. It would have been enough just to hear the full extended version play out over this opening sequence. Probably would have made you forget about the weird ping images of the Digimon bouncing around the screen. But they couldn't help themselves. They just had to act all down with the kids and shoehorn in this incredibly forced rap number. You want to know just how insufferably bad it is? They shoved the word Digi into the song as many times as they could in the most awkward of places, inserting it into the beginning of random words here and there, and even replacing the phrase "did you" because it sounds vaguely like Digi. In this 1 minute opening sequence, they used the word Digi no less than 38 times. Don't believe me? Listen for yourselves. Heck, I probably missed a few times it was said in the background, so there might be even more crammed in there. That kid's parents should be thanking God, Dramon, because if they hadn't left during the Angela short, they may have wanted to kill themselves by the end of this number. So then that means that Angela Anaconda actually saved 2 lives? Maybe that show's not as bad as I thought. So the biggest problem that Fox had with creating this movie is that each of the OVAs they were using were about 3 completely separate stories set at vastly different points within the timeline of the show. Because of this, the film is split into different segments, with a loose plot thread tying them all together. The first segment is based on the first OVA, simply called Digimon Adventure, airing as a prologue/pilot to the series and came out exactly 1 day before the show's original Japanese broadcast. Taking place a few years before the events of the main show, we're introduced to younger versions of 2 of its main cast, Tai and his sister Kari, who wake up in the middle of the night to find their home computer producing a strange-looking egg. Boy, Amazon's delivery service is really becoming intrusive. By the way, get used to hearing Kari's voice because she acts as something of a pseudo-narrator throughout the majority of this film, delivering exposition dumps left, right, and center.
My name's Kari. I'm part of a team called the DigiDestined. That's me with TK, another one of the DigiDestined. And that's Willis in America. Did you know there are actually 2 worlds? Our world and the digital world. That's my brother Ty when he was a little kid. Even back then, he was a born leader.
I suppose the film was advertised as not needing to have watched the series in order to enjoy it, and this is their reason why, as Kari's voice will just show up quite often to explain to you what you need to know at that exact moment. You know, I think we owe the Microsoft Paperclip a huge apology. Ty wakes up the following morning thinking that it was just a dream. But it wasn't, and the egg soon hatches into a fuzzy little black creature that blows bubbles and, oddly enough, hums the show's theme song. That's a bit odd, but at least he isn't rapping.
The Digivolution is up and running. Did you see? Did you hear? Did you know what's coming?
Spending some time with it, the creature suddenly changes into a pink blob thing with ears, calling itself Koromon. Also, it can talk. And poops. And has a very strange way of showing affection.
Hey, cut it out! Stop kissing my sister, you!
Oh, right. I should mention that the film decided to go a very bizarre route with its soundtrack. While it did include some original songs written for the series from the likes of Shuki Levy, Jason Radford, Paul Gordon, and MC Peapod, they also threw in an eclectic collection of more mainstream tracks from the likes of Fatboy Slim, The Bare Naked Ladies, Less Than Jake, and Smash Mouth. There's even a cover of the Kim Wilde hit Kids in America by Canadian band Len, complete with a very badly dated flash animation music video. Don't worry, this style does get better over time. That night, Koromon changes again, this time into a huge dinosaur-like creature, and takes Kari for a ride around the city with Tai chasing after them. But as they discover the more destructive capabilities of their new friend, a giant egg suddenly appears in the sky, which for a Western audience may seem unusual, but for Japan, it's probably just a typical Thursday. The egg hatches, unleashing the giant bird monster that starts attacking the kids. So Koromon steps up to defend them, going into an even larger dinosaur named Greymon. However, he's soon knocked down, and the only thing that can revive him is a little boy blowing on a whistle. A little advice to any parents watching: never let your kids go anywhere near a whistle. You'll thank me later.
Okay, I'm up. Stop blowing that damn thing.
Greymon unleashes a mighty blast of fire from his mouth that apparently engulfs both him and the bird monster as they disappear in a bright light.
It was a while before we realized that those of us who saw what happened became the DigiDestined.
Well, that can't be true because there was only 8 of you to begin with, and there's no way only 8 kids saw all of that. A transition brings us into our next segment, based on the second OVA entitled Digimon Adventure Our War Game, or Children's War Game, which was set after the events of the first season of the show. It opens with Izzy, another main character from the show, discovering a Digi-Egg on the internet being attacked by a virus.
Wow! The virus is causing the egg to develop abnormally fast! I think it's gonna hatch!
Hello?
Concerned, he rushes over to Ty's house to fill him in on the situation. This might be a good time to bring up the absolutely insane dubbing work seen throughout this entire film.
No.
There is a constant barrage of non-stop talking from nearly every single person, and there are even times when one character starts speaking the millisecond another character stops, with no pauses in between.
I think it's part Digimon, part virus.
A Digimon with a virus, so?
Are you kidding? If it stays on the internet, it could wipe out all technology as we know it.
If it just hatched, how do you know about all this stuff?
This kid I met on the internet emailed me. His name is Willis and he lives in Colorado. I don't know where he gets his information.
And all of it is just more exposition being delivered in as short amount of time as possible whilst trying to match the lip syncs with the characters on screen. At times you can even hear Izzy's voice actor take in sharp breaths as she tries to deliver the exorbitant amount of lines she's given as quickly as possible.
I better email Willis and let him know that Infomon is heading in his direction. I do have one question though. What do you think that Digimon would have been like if the virus never attacked him?
For the love of Petermon, slow down! I don't even think the Micro Machines guy ever talked this much.
The Micro Machine Man here presenting the genuine original, colossally collectible, most midget miniature episodes of the real things, Micro Machines. As
Ty and Izzy watch this new Digimon grow and consume vast amounts of data, they're contacted by their Digimon companions from the digital world, saying that they'll help them to squash this new Digimon. Unfortunately, Ty has difficulty getting in touch with the other DigiDestined, as Matt and TK are visiting their grandmother, Joe is in summer school, Mimi is on vacation, Kari is attending the birthday party of an overly excited girl. And Sora refuses to speak to Tai because of stupid reasons involving a hairpin.
I gave her this really great hairpin for her birthday, and then she got all mad and said, "Oh, you don't like my hairstyle?" And I said, "Who could tell? You're always wearing a hat." And then she said, "So, now you don't like my hat, huh?" It's very confusing.
This means that only their Digimon, Agumon and Tentomon, are available to fight. They enter the internet, which at the time seemed to be full of nothing but Ferris wheels and horses for some reason, and they engage in battle with the rogue Digimon, which digivolves into Infomon. They try to follow suit, but shockingly, Infomon attacks the 2 Digimon while they're in mid-transformation. Okay, that is an anime foul right there. Every villain knows that you have to wait the full 2 minutes while the transformation sequence is happening. It's the polite thing to do. Tai manages to get through to Matt and TK, who use a barber's computer to access the internet, meaning that Patamon and Gabumon can join the others as they chase Infomon further into the web, with Agumon and Gabumon digivolving into their mega forms. However, Infomon digivolves into his mega form, Diaboromon, and takes out Patamon and Tentomon. The intense battle rages on, but then Izzy is like,
Ooh, I have some pussy.
Leaving Tai on his own to accidentally cause his computer to crash.
Tai, where'd you go? War Greymon has practically stopped moving.
But wait a minute, how does that work? I know that Tai shares a bond with War Greymon through his Digivice, but how does his computer crashing cause him to freeze like that? Isn't he his own sentient being? Is that why Gatomon got stuck on a wall earlier? When they reconnect, they find that their Digimon have been beaten down, and Diaboromon has escaped. To make matters worse, Diaboromon has gained access to military computers and has launched 2 nuclear missiles, one of which is heading right for Tai's neighborhood. They eventually catch up with Diaboromon, only to find that he has created multiple copies of himself. In their fatigued state, they fail to dodge the unending barrage of attacks, which leaves them absolutely devastated. Through some miracle logic which the film passes off as having a strong connecting bond,
Friendship is great.
Tai and Matt somehow disappear into the internet, causing this guy's neck to break several times in confusion, as they manage to revive their Digimon and cause them to merge together to become Omnimon. Omnimon then wipes out all the Diaboromon clones before finishing off the original in a pretty brutal fashion for a kids film, stabbing him right in the face.
Ooh, faced.
Deactivating the missiles before they impact and allowing Sora to get her stupid apology letter from Tai. Wait, so did you have internet access or not? If you didn't, then why was your computer the only one seemingly affected by what was going on? And if you did, why didn't you notice all of this madness that was happening all around you and think to yourself, I'm still mad at Tai, but they could really use my help with saving the world? This movie is so stupid. And it's not even over yet. Another transition takes us into our final segment based on the third OVA entitled... oh boy. Digimon Adventure 02 Digimon Hurricane Landing / Transcendent Evolution The Golden Digimentals. Whew, I need to lie down after that one. This was a 2-part OVA set during the events of Season 2, which had barely started airing for Western audiences by the time this film came out. It's also the one that was butchered the most, as elements of these OVAs were used to try to connect the other parts of the films together to make it seem like there was one cohesive story running the whole way through. This was another reason for including a narrator, to help with tying in these plot points with the rest of the story. So, around the same time that Tai and Cory met their first Digimon, a kid in Colorado called Willis got 2 Digimon, and unlike his Japanese counterparts, somehow he was able to keep them a secret from the world. Apparently he later tried to create his own Digimon, but it ended up getting attacked by a virus, which led into the events of the second story. After Diaboromon was destroyed, the virus somehow escaped into the real world and attacked one of Willis's Digimon, Kokomon, mutating him into a ranged monster. Now an older Willis and his other Digimon, Terriermon, have tracked Kokomon to New York in an attempt to free him from the virus and restore him to his normal self.
Everybody got that? Good.
I'm sorry if that felt like a clumsy way of catching you up on the story, but it's about as good as the movie handles it. Kokomon fights with Terriermon before disappearing just as TK, Cory and their Digimon come to help, but Willis runs away from them, telling them to stay away. With Kokomon's words of "go back" ringing in his head, Willis travels back to Colorado, thinking that's where he's supposed to go. Oh, by the way, Willis is the new main character for this film. Yeah, that's right. Somebody who was barely in the background of the previous 2 stories is now the main focus for some reason. Most of the other characters like Tai and Izzy only get a passing mention at the beginning of the segment, while TK and Cory end up getting sidelines for the rest of the adventure, only showing up for the final battle near the end. Instead, we get a whole new cast of characters from the Season 2 show. Cody, Yoli, and Davis, the latter of which is described by the narrator as having the exact same personality as Tai. So what was even the point? Bear in mind that Tai has been the one we've been mostly following throughout this entire film, and now that we're in the home straight, he's suddenly brushed off to the side for Tai Light here and a bunch of newbies from a show that, may I remind you, only started airing for the Western audiences at the time of this film's release? Can someone explain to me what the Devimon this Fox execs were thinking?
We've got to have money.
Yeah, okay, that does kind of make sense. The new group catches up with Willis, who agrees to travel with them despite the fact that he was actively trying to avoid hooking up with other people out of fear of their own safety, and he explains his story to them. Davis takes it well.
That's the saddest story I ever heard.
I'm the one with the problem, not you. Get over it.
Okay.
Now, I did not edit that scene in any way. That is exactly how it is presented in the film. Davis has a massive crying fit and then instantly gets over it. Even the emotional scenes in this film are ruined because of the absolutely awful pacing. The group finally catches up with Kokomon and Digivolve for the final battle, where TK and Cory arrive to help.
Gatomon and Patamon were worried, so they digivolved into Anjuwamon and Anjumon.
Also, I've adopted a British accent for some reason. But Kokomon keeps getting stronger, and uses his powers to take them back in time to a point where the virus was in a weaker state. Sensing this, Anjuwamon and Anjumon spring into action, digivolving into their megaforms and releasing a pair of golden digi-eggs, allowing Vmon and Terriermon to become Magnamon and Rapidmon. Don't worry about it, the film's almost over. The two go inside of Kokomon and blast him from the inside out, destroying the virus, but also killing Kokomon in the process. A somber moment that is immediately broken thanks to the fake cry over here.
One thing you have to learn about Digimon, they never really die. Huh?
What?
Yes, as it turns out, Digimon don't exactly die, but instead go through some sort of reincarnation and are born again as a Digi-Egg. And I kid you not, the film ends on, of all things, a reborn Kokomon singing along to All-Star by Smash Mouth.
Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now.
He's tone deaf.
Yeah, I get the feeling that this entire film is tone deaf. Man, how do I even begin to describe my thoughts on this movie? Well, actually, I think the film itself sums it up pretty well.
It's very confusing.
It is very confusing, and not just to someone who's going in completely blind. This is a film that tries to cater to both non-fans of the series and long-time fans, but ends up disappointing both of them. The non-fans have to deal with a completely off-the-walls plot that continues to jump all over the place, leaving them feeling utterly disorientated, not helped by the fact that the characters in this film just won't shut up. Anytime it feels like the film is going to be quiet for a moment, it's filled in by the narrator spouting exposition or some other character who will either tell some random out-of-nowhere joke or say what is literally happening to them in that moment. As for fans of the show, it's hardly a pleasant ride either. The sporadic pacing and editing is nothing like the show, which, while it does have a few odd moments here and there, treats the source material with respect and builds the moments that are touching, humorous, and dramatic. This movie is all over the place, and doesn't give a single damn about these characters or coherent plot, ignoring any sense of character progression and just throwing them into the thick of it, thinking that's all they need to do. Even the fan service parts are incredibly frustrating, like when Anjumon and Anjuwamon digivolve into their mega forms, which they never did in the series, only so they can release a couple of magical MacGuffins and then get struck down a few seconds later. Or how this film clearly advertises a massive adventure involving all of your favourite characters, and then about half of them are given one line and then shunted off to the side, never to be seen again. Okay, with all of that said, there are a few things about this movie that I personally enjoy. The animation is actually pretty good, though the combination of both 2D and 3D animation is something that even the TV show struggled with at times. As stupid as the humour can be in this film, a few lines did manage to get a chuckle out of me.
Did you see that?
No, I was sleeping.
But you're driving!
Phones have gone dead worldwide. If your telephone is dead, please call your phone company.
Get that evil Digimon. You're our only hope. Here's another one. Be home by 6 o'clock. Oh, wait, that's for my mom.
I have to do this by myself. I need to be alone.
Great, I'll go with you.
Thank you for visiting. Meow.com.
Yes, even Davis suddenly getting over his depression gave me a laugh. And despite the film's narrative being one of the most unbelievably disjointed things you will ever experience, I will at least give credit to the writing and editing team for a valiant attempt at trying to piece these OVAs together into one feature-length film. I mean, they shouldn't have done it in the first place, but under the whims of Chaim Saban and Fox Kids, they turned out the best work that they possibly could have made. Let me be very clear about something. Despite what any advertising may tell you, you need to be a fan of Digimon, and you need to have seen the TV series in order to get any sort of enjoyment out of this film. I was, and I did, and I absolutely loved it at the time. I still do in a nostalgic sense. But nowadays, I can see this film for the obvious cash grab that it is, and understand how every parent, older sibling, and babysitter must have felt when they were dragged into the cinema to watch this. Maybe it would have been better if they released the original OVAs on home video or as specials on the Fox Kids channel or something, but this isn't what we got. What we got instead was a pile of garbage-mon.
Digimon, digital masters, Digimon.